Hey, what's up? Um, we're gonna talk about OCD today, obsessive compulsive disorder. I removed one of my filters. Someone was saying the audio was cutting in and out. I'm leaving my compressor on, so hopefully this fixes it. But hopefully not too much background noise is picked up. I know in like the summertime with the air conditioner running, it can backfeed into the mic, and that can be a bit of an issue. But I'll have to tweak my noise gate then. I'm still really sick, so I apologize. Um, just waking up, drinking some coffee, gonna work out in a bit. Yeah, I wanted to touch on OCD. If you have it, you know it. Sometimes, there can be much severe cases of it, much worse cases of it. There's like, in my opinion, there's like a spectrum. Like, there's people that can't even leave their houses. They have to compulsively clean all day or do certain rituals. Like in some of the documentaries you see, like people will have to like put deodorant on like 1,000 times and dab their armpits or like count compulsively or touch something 1,000 times. Mine was never that bad. Um, when I was younger, it was more physical OCD, and I think some type of trauma may have provoked it and like started it. I can't remember exactly what it was. But I would start like doing weird physical OCD things. Like I couldn't, to this day, it's still sort of an issue with like intrusive thoughts, like the number three. I can't end on the number three, right? I don't know how to explain it. Like if I pick something up 3 times, I'll have to do it a fourth time. I'm gotten better at it. I'll force myself to just do it. If I'm working out, I can't end on like an interval of three, like 23, 13. I have to go one past that, but I'll force myself to do it just to like break through it. But there are some people with way worse OCD than I've ever had. I've studied it, looked it up, watched a lot of documentaries on it. It can be very bad. It can be debilitating, to this day, I'll do the piano scale forward and backwards in my head every day. Like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And then I'll think of like the guitar scale, E, A, D, G, B, E. Eddie Ain't Done, My Goodbye Eddie, which is like words to put with the scale to memorize it. Weird stuff like that. I'll recite measurements like that relate to my job or even like an old job, like valve dimensions. There were these shreddings on valves, and when I was in the oil field, in the oil industry as a valve tech, and I still recite the measurements, like the bottom 1.8" to 5.5". The centers were 1.5" by 7 3/4, and the top was 1 inch and 7/8 by 9. Like stupid stuff like that. I haven't even worked in that industry in over 2 years, and I'm still reciting old measurements in my head. For what reason? I don't know why. My current job, like lengths of certain metal, like 85.5 by 16.5, 21" for highs. I know people have no idea what I'm talking about, but like stupid stuff like that has no relevancy. Or like I'll have to think of like the worst possible situation and outcome, and then like a decent one, and then like the best. It always has to be in that order, right? Like, okay, I don't know how to explain it. It could be over anything. It's so ridiculous. That's the thing about OCD. It's so ridiculous that it's ridiculous, but you have to do it to like ease your mind, and you won't understand it unless you experience it. So like, I don't even know. I can't even think of a good example. Like, if my boss and I get into an altercation at work, the worst case scenario, I get fired or reprimanded. Okay scenario is like nothing really happens. In the best case scenario, I get my way, right? Or this can apply to anything. Like if your girlfriend cheats on you, okay, you split up, you get into a fight with the dude, you know, okay situation is if like it didn't actually happen, it was a misunderstanding. The best case scenario is if like it never even happens at all, right? Like it's weird. Like the thought OCD is so weird. But the thing is, like, OCD has also been like a lifesaver too. Like, I barely ever forget anything because I'm repeating thoughts in my head so much that I memorize almost everything. And sometimes it's annoying and frustrating. You get exhausted from it. But when I was younger, it was like physical. Like, I remember my Goosebump books, I had to stack them perfectly. I would spend like 2 hours restacking them and putting them in perfectly. I got past the physical aspect. Some people don't. They go years with it. I got over that, and like, I don't even know if it lasted a few years in my teens. I don't remember it lasting that long because it was like, it was so exhausting and ridiculous. I just sort of broke through it, but the mental intrusive thoughts stayed, right? But yeah, it would be like restacking these books and they'd have to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, like my whole world would end. Like my universe would collapse, right? I'm still sort of like that with like my collection. Everything has to be protected in a certain order. Then I'll recheck things and make sure everything's there, and everything has to be perfect with it, right? Like it's still there in some aspects, but not in like, that's different. Like some of that stuff's expensive and like it has to be like a certain way. It has to be what I bought, what I expected. Like it could be a $25 game, right? Or a $25 card. And if it comes messed up, it'll frustrate me, even though like I could care less about $25. That's just a perfectionist type, trait as well. There were other things when I was young, like lights. I'd have to like flick them off and on. And when I'd walk away, I'd think it was still on. So I'd have to go back and check it like 10 times, right? That stuff went away too. Thank God. Like checking if the stove was off. You're thinking, oh my God, the stove's on. The only thing to this day that really sticks with me is the coffee pot. Like I always forget if I turn the coffee pot off, and I'm afraid if I leave it on, it'll cause a fire. But it's not like, I don't check it 1,000 times or anything. It's just like, I'll check it, make sure it's off, and then I'm good. It ain't like an issue, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to think of some other rituals. I guess that's what they call them, because they're like meaningless, but you have to go through them and it has to be perfect or your mind will not be at ease. Like, if you know what I'm talking about. It's weird to explain. And I never really talked about this to anybody. Like, I'll say I have OCD, but like people just don't, like he's like perfectionist or like things have to be a certain way. They don't get the whole background and what comes with it or like how it works, like people, just saying you have OCD is such a shallow statement. I'm trying to think of more examples. Spelling words, like it's weird. Like I'll spell words in my head all day, like orange, ORANGE. Speculate, SPECULAT. You know what I mean? Like I'll be doing that in my head all day on repeat. It ain't like nonstop, but it's enough to be annoying sometimes. Like spelling out words. I guarantee I spell out more words in a day than most people do in a month. And it's sort of annoying and useless. And like, I feel like if I don't do it, I'll forget how to spell or something. And when in reality, I always remember how to spell. And like, if I don't know how to spell a word, I'll have to like look it up and memorize it, and then I can spell it perfectly. It's really weird. I'm really weird with grammar. That's why when I see people misspell things, I don't like correct. I'm not like a grammar Nazi, but it will trigger me. You know what I mean? Especially if it's like a basic word, just because I'm so OCD about it. I'm not like, an English teacher like that. It's a mental thing. And like little things will aggravate me, like, how to explain it? Like repetitious things. Like say something falls and I pick it up and it falls again, the second time I'll get more like way more upset than the average person, like when it's the same thing over and over. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's repetitious things. Like, yeah, like if I pick something up, put it on the table, and say it falls down and my cat knocks it down a second time, it'll real my anger level will be drastically different from the first time, and the third time it'll be like light year, it'll be way worse than the second time. If you get what I'm talking about, you'll get it. Like, something could fall here and then something could happen completely different and it really won't even affect me. It's when it's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's weird to describe. It really is. But yeah, I've never, like, I don't know. Like, I was on sertraline years ago, and I don't know, it's supposed to help OCD. That more so helped anxiety, and I guess sertraline doesn't help everybody. Sometimes it makes people worse. Sometimes it does nothing. It made my anxiety better, but I don't think it really did much to my OCD. It might have dampened the thoughts a little bit. I can't really, when that stuff starts working, it's hard to really tell. I think it, anxiety-wise, it definitely helped. And I only was on 25 to 50 milligrams, but I don't know. It might have alleviated the thought issue a little bit. It wasn't, a drastic change or anything, though. Trying to think of what else to talk on this. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of info out there. I forget what they say. It's like a serotonin or a dopamine shift in the brain, and it causes you to do repetitious things or think repetitiously. It's sort of a blessing and a curse for me. Same with like ADD. Like, it has pros and cons to it. It's, if someone's like doing one thing a million times in a day and they're doing it for 4 to 8 hours a day, that's affecting them in a very negative, way. Like, that's not livable. Like, mine's never gotten to that point, but it's definitely had its pros. But I also, I think, alcoholism correlates with the OCD too. Like, wanting to stop the repetitious thoughts and dampen it down and not giving a crap, right? Like, I think that goes hand in hand with alcoholism with me. Because drinking was always about shutting down the brain, you know what I mean? Like, just, relief, right? But now that I've been sober for almost 7 months, it's like I'm learning to deal with it, and just ride the waves and take the bad days with the good days. But yeah, that's basically the rundown on it. It's not really a big hindrance, but if it is a big hindrance in your life and you're like high on the spectrum, maybe seek some help for it. I mean, some of the people I see in these documentaries are wild. Like, it gets really severe. Like, think of what I've told you times 5, 10, 10x. And yeah, it can be very hindering to your life. But yeah, take it easy.